Absolutely. Yes. Now we start.
Okay. And yes. So. Okay. It starts in about 5 seconds.
Wow.
So. Yes, so I think we are online, and yes, now we're also recording, and there are a few people here. I hope that they all can hear and see us, maybe. So a very warm welcome from my side. And it's nice to see you, or even not to see you, but to know that you're here on a Friday evening. We didn't really know whether it's a good time to make such a talk in the evening of Friday, but then we decided that we can't lose, we just can win, and so we did it. And I think here are about, I don't know, 10 or 12 people, and yes, warm welcome from my side. And yes, it's a part of the Pochen Symposium. Maybe you already read about it, or maybe you have been there yesterday at the beginning. And yes, it's this year that we try to make a new theme for next year for the Biennale. And our big topic is kind of data, just to summarize it in one word, but I think it's much more than only data. So we're about to talk today with Christina Lucas and Simon Weckert as two artists, and Sabine Maria Schmidt, who will make the moderation, and of course they all will be introduced to you. And I'm from the Pochen team right here. And yes, Anja Richter, who was mentioned in the program, she's at Oslo right now, and she has to make an opening of an exhibition there, so she can't join us today, but she sent very warm greetings from Oslo. And yes, I think we will make it in a very good way. And if you've got any question, don't hesitate to write them in the chat. We activated it, and yes, of course, we welcome not only the people who are right here to ask questions here, also the people who just into the stream. Yes, we are just very happy that all of you are here. And maybe just one word to the Pochen Symposium. It will take from yesterday until Sunday, and if you've got if you want to join some events or so, feel free. You can find the program online, and we are always very happy to have people here. And I think I would just, because we think about making 1 hour as a talk and an introduction and a discussion, so not that long, that everybody will get some dinner, of course. And we heard that Simon has to go to another exhibition as well. So I think, yes, let's have a nice evening, and I will hand over to Sabine for the first introduction.
Yeah, sorry, but maybe I also have to introduce myself. My name is Sabine Maria Schmidt. I'm a curator, an art historian, and art critic, and I'm working since 2 years at the Kunstsammlungen Chemnitz as curator. I also curated last year the Pochen exhibition in the exhibition of the Pochen Festival last year, which was about the Treuhand, the prize of future. And so there's a relationship between the art institutions of Chemnitz with this very new media festival, this young media festival. And we are very happy now to have a very good coincidence in the city with 2 artists, which see a wider spectrum about what happens now with research strategies of art and different interdisciplinary approaches which have to do with digitalization, history, and all the new items which are in discussion. So both artists work, I would say, in a wider art self-definition. I first have to introduce Christina Lucas. I'm the curator of a show at the Kunstsammlungen Chemnitz. Anja Richter, who's at the moment not present, is curated the exhibition with Simon Weckert, also very welcome here now at the Gunzenhauser Museum. And I first want to introduce both artists very shortly, because later they both give their statements and we want to get into discussion with them both. Christina Lucas is, I would say at the moment, one of the most, really important artists of the Spanish art scene, who's internationally exhibited and present. And we show, honestly, in Chemnitz, one of the first bigger exhibitions, museum solo shows in Germany. And we did it with we focused on some of her large video installations, which are work in progress. Some of them are work in progress pieces, representative key works and more recent works of her. So it was a very fine selection of a very big corpus of works she did at the moment. One of the most important pieces is Unending Lightning. It's a very big installation. I think, Cristina, you will comment the work later, right? And it is depending on a certain visual database, but not only a visual database, because we're talking about data today. Data is a very wide definition of how it becomes, what is data, because we started with very classical ideas of everything, what could be measured, what could be noted, what could be evaluated, like names, like birthdays, like historical dates, and so on. So data is not only what we mean nowadays is digital data or the possibility of digitalization of data. It's everything what's around of facts, and honestly, it's something what could be measured and could be calculated by very different sciences and systems. Maybe we can discuss this later, but this could be a kind of common sense to start above. So Christina is working with a lot of different data, and she's creating different cartographies, but she's also inventing different forms of bringing this informations and researches into an aesthetic form and also into an visualized form, which is in the widest sense art, because at the moment it nearly makes no sense to talk too much about art. I think at the moment it's much more interesting to talk about new strategies, about how to deal with everything what happens now at the moment with images, with data, with all the ways of communication in which we are involved. The same now with Simon. He's also, I would say, somebody who has a very open-minded idea. Maybe he's not even, when he started, he maybe was not starting like thinking about becoming an artist, which is also very interesting. He started to become, be a do some self-organization as a musician, as somebody who is learning different systems, programs, and so on, and who started to study and to program and to develop very interesting approaches of, I would say, interactions also with our world of internet, of programs and systems. And at the moment at the Gunzenhauser, he's preparing, or he's showing first time a wider group of works, which arose a lot of I would say, attention, especially a piece which was a kind of very funny cultural hack, not only cultural hacking stuff, in like bringing systems in a kind of, wie sagt man, or tricking out a system with itself. What is hacking? Hacking is like getting into a system, getting into the structure and work from inside, analyzing it and then working against that. So we have a lot of very different ideas, different work from artists from also a little bit different generations, maybe we could say, and different countries. But we have a lot of ideas in common. And I hope that we now, in this talk, we get together or discuss elements which are in common, others which are not, or differences. And I would suggest now that we all get or become on the same level of information, that we start with some trashy videos I and Anja filmed today, just with our handies, to get you all a first idea about what's up in the exhibitions. So we start with the second video of Christina. Maybe it works, maybe not. This is the second part of the show. The show is Kunstsammlungen Chemnitz. Here takes place a huge show in square meters, 4 chapters, around 4 six. One which is left about the story of the addition of arts. Huge new piece with paintings, sculptures, and new video. I don't comment this. It's just like I did it. This film is called The People That Was Missing.
Man surpassed with stolid necessity for lifeless matter.
The other film, there you just check one of the mountain photos, maybe. This is the main hall, the big hall in the exhibition. This is the big piece when you enter the exhibition. This is the first installation. And then you have a new series of pieces, not a new series, but it's the first time that the whole series is actually this special textile works. With a film which is called Touching International. So it's just a short snack to get into the show. You know, the Kunstsammlungen Chemnitz is not only one museum, it's many, it's 4, and one of the other very important spaces is the Museum Gunzenhauser, and that's where Simon is showing his work. Maybe we'll also show Simon's pieces. Here we also end with the show, I would say. It's the second video also. My colleague also did a short handy snapshot through the exhibition. Also, Simon has different pieces. This is one maybe of his very interesting ones. Maybe you will comment this also later, which provoked a kind of, I don't know the English word for Stau, a traffic jam. And you hear the sound of the trumpet, which is very interesting because the trumpet is playing this very famous military goodbye of the missing soldier without human beings, I would say. The absence of players, the absence of human beings. This is only 2 pieces of the show. There are many more. Now we switch over to a video installation also. It's a little bit was in earlier times was what we called closed circuit installations, where you get a reaction of the camera, which is filming what is happening at the space, but in a very astonishing or, wie sagt man, fragmented or alienated way, verfremdete Form. And this is also very interesting as a very good idea of working with cartographies, because Simon is here analyzing the inner politics, I would say, of this big main data platforms like Google and the way they are constructing images of the world, and the images of the world, the images of certain countries, the images of certain borders seem to be very different depending on from which country you are organizing your data. So from a view, I would say it very easy, the view from China on certain countries is very different from the view of the United States from different countries. Do we also see the other film? If not, it might be at the moment a data problem. And we will, now we will have it. Simon is using programs, but the funny thing is that he is also programming and manipulating a lot of programs. So he, as an artist, he's also a programmer who is doing the pieces. So, like Christina's work with a big installation, this is the entrance installation of Simon, where he also produced certain mountains, I would say, or certain accumulations of different, elements of what we are now organizing our data and our vision of the world. So it's trash which is accumulated and then at a certain point taken into discussion or taken into the idea to create new images. And it's more and more like many futurists say it's this, what is the cable, what is the body of the digital bodies, which have brains, which have cables, like the human beings have veins, which have a head, which have the intelligence or something like that. So finally, we have this image of a kind of fragmented nature in the installation. Yeah. And a lot of stuff what could be used but isn't anymore. Maybe it's autumn also. It's a certain sign kind of autumn. Digital autumn. After the storm, I feel like. Okay, so you all get now a good idea about what the both artists are presenting in the shows. And I would ask now Christina to start with her short statement because she wanted to comment some pieces, and if Simon would like to comment anything what she is talking about from his point of view, it would be very fantastic if he would do so, and maybe vice versa, he might to point out later some statements on his work, and we do it vice versa. Okay. So let's start.
Okay, thank you, Sabina, for the introduction, and thank you to Porchen for the invitation. Our exhibition is has a whole statement that is in mobile engine, but since we are participating on this program, on this festival about data, specifically is the main issue. I've been more analogical person, and then I became digital when I was already an adult. So for me, it's special. I mean, how an artist can start thinking about the digitalization on internet, how it's affecting your life is something that is part of my process as an artist. So one of my main pieces, I start thinking about the idea of all those information, how can we deal with that? It was Pantone. It's a work I made in the cartography I made in 2006. I started in 2006. I'm not sure if we have the image that maybe we could share on the screen, or maybe we have that data problem. No, it's number 01, please. Well, anyway, I will explain that I decided to make a video of all the idea of state, how the state is evolving with the time, with the years, and how the idea of the state is changing, and how the idea of identity and the nation is, although it seems very aesthetic, it's quite dynamic, how it has been changing. But there, of course, the information was on my hands through Wikipedia, through many other information that you could find online as a person just researching on internet. That was possible because otherwise it wasn't possible to make a piece of art like that. And but
could you just explain what Pantone, what kind of cartography you worked on? What is the base of this cartography?
Yeah, I was thinking. Okay, it was the year 2006. And then I have a cartography of political map of the world, and then I found a globe of the world from 1970 something, and then I found out that the world was very different. So I decided to make all this change, all the tracking of the idea of a state, and from the year 500 before Jesus Christ to 2007, when I finished the work. So you see all this information of the world politically changing. It's very, it's a lot of information. And then this information was possible thanks to internet, to Wikipedia and things like that. All this data that I could collect, sharing all this information. But then I thought that it was such a official information. This information is coming from the idea of a state, what a state means. And of course, in this cartography, there are many things that are out of the idea of a state, of what we can think about living together today. So I start making cartography with words, with the language. So it was a kind of a main door for me, like how to approach to the cartography through internet and through social media, sharing information with other people. Mm-hmm. And also the cartography that we present now in Chemnitz is Unending Lightning, which is the number 2. And this Unending Lightning is also a cartography made by many people. Some newspaper, but some books, some universities, and just things that you can find on the independent researcher, journalist. Mm-hmm. Because I was thinking like the idea of Guernica is a strong universal painting for us, for Spanish people, for instance, and many other people. And I thought that still nowadays you can feel all those aerial bombing over civilian are still going on. So I decided to make the cartography of the cities that has been bombed. So it is a huge work, but it's a work done with it's not official work, because state do not tell us official numbers most of the time, official figures. So it's a very open cartography, never ending. And the work of the title of the work is Unending Lightning. It's made with the collaboration of many, many people and many sources. And so we try to complete all this information of aerial bombing over civilians like Guernica. So it also was great to me to be able to create something that it will never be finished, and it's an open source, an open platform where a lot of researchers are really feeding the system with the information. But yeah, the problem with this work is that it's up to now, it's almost 7 hours. So it's very long. It's a work that you cannot just see completely. Maybe you can do it, but it's just a task. And so we made these embroideries with the cities that with the result of a work that once it's finished, you can see all those names of the city that has been bombed. So then you can feel, the scarf of these people, of this legacy. Maybe this is the next image, the number 003, I think. That we show already.
It's one of the textile words, maybe.
The textile wall,
that's
yes.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So you see, really, you can feel like how terrible it was, no? I mean, it's something that isn't more emotive than really like a way to follow, to search for the city and to see how many civilians who was bombing and under what conflict. No, it's more emotive, but actually society that has been affected by a war, and it doesn't matter how far this work could be, you can still feel like a kind of heritage, like a kind of scarf. So that's why I also present this work in connection with we decided to present this work in connection with the aerial bombing, super digital database and screen work. Also, this other work is more like, I don't know, it's maybe more sensible or something, and something more close. You can feel a little bit more the problem that is still remains on the societies. And the world is absolutely global today, and we cannot think about what is going on in Europe or in the United States. Just we cannot be Eurocentric. It's absurd. The world is very small, and in global times everything is connected. So this piece, the idea of approaching to data in such a general way was important to me. And then I present this also. I would like to introduce the piece of the clocks here, because there is an installation called Clockwise. That is number 4, yeah. So in this installation, you are into a space where all the planet Earth has 360 degrees because it's in a sphere. So each degree is represented by 4 minutes. So we install the 360 clocks working. And then into this installation, you can feel the whole planet Earth moving at the same time. This time, this global time, is a kind of infinite present that connect us in such a spontaneous way. And the time is collapsed. It's not going forward. It's not going backwards. We are just such deeply connected that sometimes the idea of future and past are coming together in a very special and weird moment for us in global time. So that's why we made this special piece for our exhibition called Present Continuous, with these 2 clocks that are one forward and the other one backwards. In a very abstract way, just only the legs, the hands, but this simultaneously make us think that absolutely everything is connected to the past and the future, and the present is just kind of an artifact that is going on, and the timeline is completely over. It's not working anymore. And so of course, we have also the work of the geological time is very different to the human time. And the geological time, it has its own, it's very slow, but our time is very fast. And this problem with the nature and how the capitalism is just changing everything. So I start collecting all these mountains of elements that are dealing with the industry. So those mountains are fake mountains or mountains generated by the economy. And this idea of changing everything, the nature and the planet under these economical activities is it's something quite serious nowadays. And all those elements, the elements that are part of our everyday life, of our activities, are being, in dangers more and more. And so this is something that this is a challenge that we have to face. Our generations and next generations, we have to deal with that. So I made also in 2016 a piece called Elemental Order, where all the elements of a periodic table of elements are, the normal way is just they are on the chemistry. The order is by the atomic number, of course. But now what I did was to find the economical values on the market, stock market or big companies, and then to connect the screen with the web page where this information is coming and is feeding the system. So every minute, or every 5 minutes, or every 2 minutes, I don't remember what, the system is refreshing. So all the elements are changing the values based on the market, on the stock market. So the new order is just this. It's an economical order. The nature is associated to that. And it's not it's very important to us to realize that although this is the recipe of the everything of the planet Earth, those elements are part of you can complete the work with all those elements. They have a value on the market, and this is changing everything. Technologically speaking, also, we are just giving a lot of value to very unusual elements until now. And I was thinking, of course, we are also made of the same elements than the rest of the world, the rest of the planet. So I made a lot of, lately, I made some compositions with the 26 essential elements for human bodies. Maybe we have an image before where you can see the table of human bodies elements. Yeah, one before. Oh, maybe yes. Okay. Yeah. Even one more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are sharing the same elements with the rest of the planet as everybody else, and so all those elements are you can find them. I don't know, many different places, and I decided to start making compositions with all those elements. So it's the abstract composition that you just showed, and I've been doing that lately during the pandemic, because also it was not possible to me to make another type of work. So I was using the information in an abstract way and just making something with my hands, something physical, because also I had the necessity to do something with my hands, because the whole day I was in front of the computer for everything, for watching my family, for reading articles, for researching, for having dinner with friends online, it was too much. So at one point, I think it was important to make something with your hands. So I was working with all those compositions, and also we're having a very nice dialogue with the last video I made before the pandemic time, and it was this one I made in North Pole. There I found out how serious is the situation with the planet. So the signals, all the message were so clear, and so I was collecting a lot of different quotes from different thinkers and making a poem, and was the landscape. The landscape was talking to us, the landscape was telling us basically, please, we should be the people that is missing, so a kind of people that will be able to face the situation, because the situation is quite serious.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. Maybe, I don't know if we have one more or two images more. Maybe we can just scroll through that. So maybe I can resume a little bit concerning our symposium think about data. So you have a lot of different strategies in working with data. You are researching very classical, like historical data, bringing them together in a very immersive way, like you did with this kind of research, which we normally don't have neither from historicals, like in Unending Lightning. You are also observing data which is produced, like you did in this big stela about the market systems. We work with a lot of different ideas to visualize with different cartographies, I would say, proportions of power or proportions of different relationships, no? Like voting systems in the world, or like you showed in the Pantone image. That might be very interesting now also for Simon, because the work with the Pantone images is a little bit a reconstruction how mankind defined national territories. Maybe we can switch over to your work, Simon, concerning, because you also made something which we all knew a little bit. Maybe we also know that everything is capitalized, or no, that there's also powers changing. But Christina is inventing forms of making them obvious or feelable or emotional or just creating them. You also did something like that. We all know that Wikipedia is not a classical dictionary, or that Google is not a very neutral forms. Maybe you could comment your interest in how you deal with data in this section.
Maybe before I'm gonna start, because as Christina mentioned, like the value of elements, I also experienced it during the setup phase of the exhibition at Gunzenhauser Museum, because I collected a lot of cables, like basically a month before the exhibition opening. And then literally like 1 week before the opening, the people at this area said like, hey, sorry, but the copper price went super high at the moment, so we have to sell the cables you collected for your exhibition. We are sorry for that. That's what they said. And basically I had like literally like just like 1 week left to get new cables. So that means that this exhibition and this installation I do in the Gunzenhauser Museum is super related to the value of those elements. And this was like basically like it's really like a one-to-one contact in a way, like how the stock market or the market for copper influences the exhibition, or in that case the art. And yeah, basically it's to come to maps. I mean, I didn't prepare such a, let's say, nice presentation, but as you have seen in the video, I think a good example I could give when it comes to data and also with regards to maps is the performance, or well, I think it's also like an installation somehow, which is called Google Maps Hex. And you showed it in the video, or you saw it in the video already. It's basically like a little hand wagon, like a red one. And there are 99 smartphones in it. And with those smartphones, I was able to generate virtual traffic on Google Maps. So you can imagine it like this, that, or maybe to put it in another way, I got this idea when I went to a demonstration, to a protest in Berlin. And this time I had a look at my smartphone and I realized that there was a virtual traffic on Google Maps. And this was basically the beginning for this project, where I thought, okay, interesting. Actually, Google is thinking that there's virtual traffic, but in fact, there's no car outside in the streets. There are just people walking alongside the street. And I thought, yeah, maybe that might be quite easy to reproduce. And where basically I used 99 smartphones and put them into a wagon and was carrying them behind me in the streets. And after a while, I realized, oh, interesting. Actually, I can recreate this virtual traffic. And after a while, the streets were getting more and more empty by cars, because, of course, especially when you're in a city center like Berlin, taxi drivers, tourists, and a lot of people, they are using navigation systems like the one from Google. And Google basically told them, like, yeah, here, there's traffic in front of you, so you have to be getting reroutes around it. And I think that's a pretty interesting demonstration, like how data is, first of all, shaping our everyday life, for example, with navigation systems, like how we move from A to B. And where, right now we have discussions about how we're going to deal with data, right? And how we're going to, let's say, make them in a way securable, or let's say how can we build up a system, that on the one hand, we are not spending too much data, but on the other hand, we are also having systems that run with data and make, let's say, our life easier. Basically, they're saying it like, we have smart systems. And I think this hack, and I think that's how I define it, basically like a hack, demonstrates like how you can, let's say, outsmart systems. And right now we have discussions about, let's say, data privacy, right? I mean, we can say like, okay, let's autonomize or let's say anonymize those data, to not get tracked back by, let's say, companies like Google. But on the other hand, there's another method, and this is the method which I used in this hack, which is called data jamming. So basically, you can also hide yourself in this pool of data or in front of these, let's say, huge technology companies by generating a lot of nonsense data, basically, or let's say generating, let's say, an overflow of data, so that you're getting anonymized in this huge amount of data. And therefore, those systems, as I think this hack showed, is that they are not made for this kind of amount of, let's say, data or interventions, and they are not able to filter that out. I mean, they said like they're working on it, but I think they will never basically filter things like these kind of events out in the future, because, it's basically a thing which can happen all the time, and they probably will not know if there are cars or humans outside in the street. And I mean, this is like, data on the one hand, and also as you work with maps, and especially these days when we have digital maps, I think maps, when we talk about it, for example, Google Maps, I think what it is it's basically like a data visualization, right? Like it visualizes real-time input from us, from me, as I'm part of the system. I'm not just using it, I'm also providing data into it. And this basically shapes the way how it appears and how it looks like. And I think that's also a big difference compared to, let's say, old methods like we know it from, printed maps, because maps, like analog maps, when they are printed, they are basically outdated at the moment where they are printed, because, the environment around us is changing every second, right? The rivers, the nature is basically changing. And I think like one of the big promises of Google is they want to provide, I think, a map in the dimension 1 by 1 in real time, driven by data.
Yeah, and Simon, may I ask you, but what's your opinion on that? Because I think that is super interesting, or that's my question also. It's concerning the aspect of time, because I think when we discuss about data, it's always about time, because data is like this fluent data which is changing at all moments. So, for example, did you ask yourself if you could do the same performance in 5 years again? Or like you mentioned, we are thinking now about data privacy. Now is a little bit 20 years old now, the thinking about data privacy. Julian Assange is now 10 years or 12 years in prison. Edward Snowden is now about, I think, 10 years in exile and so. And if you, for example, what I also found very interesting, maybe you can also comment that when you observe the landscapes of the different countries from different ways, you take into, because everyone, when we access to a homepage or an internet information, we know that we have to fix the data. Not only we get them, we also have to fix the date when we access a page, and even the local parameters from where we access a page. So isn't this also much more out of what you mentioned to the analog cartographies? Is not even digital cartography even more weaker, and I would say from 1 second to another out of the actuality? Like,
well, I mean, when it comes to the actuality or the terms of actuality, I mean, maybe let me try to summarize, but I think, yeah, in this sense, I think there's much more, there's another quality in it for sure. I mean, just think about things like, maybe let's have a look into the future, right? I mean, maps, they can be also being used, and they're already being used, let's say, for applications like, Pokemon Go, for example. There's a cooperation between Pokemon Go and Google Maps, and they are saying like, okay, could you please place some pretty raw Pokemons in front of our store, in front of our fast food store, so that a lot of users basically go there, they play in front of the store, and maybe they come up with the idea of, let's go inside and get some food, right? And I think this is like a totally different new story which we didn't have before, and which basically will for sure come more and more, that we are getting privatized or individualized maps with regards to what we like, what we share, and so on. Like, there are already experiments like, where they say like, okay, I go from A to B, you go from A to B, but with regards of our interests, we are getting different routes to the city, and maybe passing by some shops where we might be interested in. So I think here we definitely have to raise the questions again, and I know we're getting tired of it. And as you said, like Julian Assange raised it, Edward Snowden raised that question, and all those people, basically those leakers. But I think we should not getting tired of this, to always put the finger onto that point, to say like, hey, we cannot play with this kind of rules at the moment. We definitely have to fight more for data privacy, or even if we're going to try to capitalize it when it comes to terms of, for example, micropayment, but to say like, okay, every data snippet they get from me, I'm getting paid for. And basically this kind of gray area system where nobody knows where the data goes, and basically, how the game works, right? Then I think this is basically that's how we should thrive in with data in the new future. And I think also, like, data visualization, for example, is what I realize more is as well, like, a blindness arises against the gathering and the production of data. I think nobody now really asks the question like, how was this data generated and where does it come from? And I think, instruments to capture data, sensors and so on, they are made for a specific purpose, and they are made just basically to gathering this kind of data, but they are providing us a world where they say like, okay, this is the real world, this is basically how it is, and we tend to see them as real, or let's say as the real world, forgetting that this is basically just a measured part of the world. And that's basically what I also see where we really trust, or where the trust in data is much bigger as it should be.
Because because my question also is a little bit in the sense, you are a programmer and you are really understanding maybe how some data are produced, but because what I'm always thinking that the flexibility, and this short living, because data nowadays are totally dynamic, they are existing in the absolutely now, and the now is even, it's past when it's just happened. So it's like this only contemporary moment, which is of course very entertaining, but in a sense of understanding the world or analyzing the world or like evaluating the world, or like I think this is a symbol what Christina made with the two clocks which are running, and at the end you have nothing, because if you don't have this moments or stops, how shall we deal with this in future? Because this is also so difficult to, we also see it at the moment. The world is extremely changing because of the many manipulations of data which are thrown out into all the digital platforms we are using. Difficult question maybe, but might this be our enterprise in the future or something, or a big job, or is it, don't know.
Maybe the question is like, how do we get more value to data, right? As you said, like, we have a stock market, like a value for elements, right? Like Cristina showed it, like she made it work where you see like, okay, this is, this is like a table, and here you see the value of the elements. For me, maybe a question would be, how could we value data in a way, like, just basically saying, okay, this data snippet, that's a bit and that's a byte and that's it. Maybe we could also put something behind that. Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to go this path, but, just as a somehow like a link to it, like this kind of NFT discussion, there are a lot of pros and cons, but I think that's interesting as well, because it goes a bit into the direction, how can we value data?
Yeah, how can we evaluate it? I'm sorry for interrupt, but I think that with all this information that we are exposed today, how deal with all those data is quite important. And of course, the key is this algorithm, that you are able to make an algorithm, and then you find out something, then that you. For me, it's very intriguing. I don't know how to make algorithm, and then I feel like I need it to know, because otherwise I'm missing something important. You are a programmer. Can you tell us about this idea of being able to decodify the word, because the algorithm is the key?
Well, I mean, of course, algorithms are just like a process, right? After A follows B and so on, and if A, if B are this state, then C follows. Basically, it's more like a structure of methods, and maybe that's also different, compared from my side. As I'm coming more from the technology side, I'm most of the time actually more interested into the technology first of all, and then actually I'm wrapping around the concept. That's probably a lot of people say like this is not the way how it should be, but sometimes it generates a lot of interesting processes, because you're working with the technology, or you're working with these algorithms and trying to first of all understand it, and then to, let's say, hack it or to use it in another way. And well, of course, this creates some kind of different method, a different, let's say, story as well. But what's also important there is, and that's maybe a term which I would like to bring you in discussion as well. I think it's, and as we are, as this symposium is also taking place in Chemnitz, I think like, with traditional algorithms or with traditional programs, and maybe if you are, let's say, a designer, or if you're working more in the creative field, most of the people, they're using algorithms which are predefined by big companies. So maybe let's take an example of Photoshop, right? There are some filters in it and you use them, but the thing is you have no idea how they work. And I think this creates a so-called term of proletarianism or proletariat. Like, I think it's like a digital proletariat, like Marx defined it. So we are addicted or related to these tools. And this basically shapes the way how, let's say, I don't know, design graphical outputs looks like. I mean, you can, for example, sometimes tell people, okay, this product was made with this tool because this tool has a specific aesthetics. And I think what I realized, or what's happening right now, is that in a lot of design schools and universities, people, they're getting taught to program or to create their own algorithms, or maybe to break and to dive into this kind of tools and to use it in their own way, how they would like to, or maybe to use it in a way how this tools was not made for. And I think that's a super, super crucial and important part, that we are not using this predefined baked algorithms and trying also to understand what's behind that. And that's also what I see as me as an artist. I somehow see that also as, maybe as you as well, like as some kind of journalism and research, and to give back a story, or to somehow understand first of all the thing, and then to tell a story in a different manner, how, let's say, text or video could not do. So maybe to attach those people, the visitors, the audience, in a different emotional way. I think that's super important when you're working in the media art field, and especially now these days with technology.
Maybe I can put one further question, because, Christina also worked a lot with programmers. Now, for example, to program this huge installation on Unending Lightning, which is always feeded up with data, but not in an algorithmical way or an automatized, but with proved, searched, and like handcrafted way.
Yes.
To feed the computer with handcraft, with with self-cooked food, I would say. You are also programming in a certain way, but mostly, as I understand, when we talked after the opening or at the press conference, you also told me you sometimes also work with a sort of programming. For example, this morphing piece, which you did with manipulating portraits. It's like we all know it's just at the moment this morphing is quite old, yeah, from the end of the 90s, which it started with digitalization, but there are so many programs now. It's also entertaining. It's also, so how do you deal? Do you also think, because the hacking stuff you did with the handies was funny, it was really great, because you're also putting the system against themselves. Is this also not interesting to do it with all these programs and to show that they are not that clever and complicated like we all think? And isn't this also interesting? Or are you inventing new programs for your own programs? Be honest.
Well, I mean, of course. I mean, yeah. So I'm a programmer. So basically, I'm programming a lot of stuff. And so, for example, I mean, maybe to answer the question in Zapfenstreich, because there's a question in the chat. So therefore, for example, I used a program or used a machine. It's called machine learning, basically like a method where I trained our algorithm to learn the song of Zapfenstreich. And so the thing is that here the idea was I would like to teach the algorithm what needs to be done basically to play an instrument, in that case Zapfenstreich or the trumpet basically. And the thing is, it's like a super important part in the process as well, because then you much more understand, for example, like how pattern recognition works, like how those systems, AI or let's say machine learning, which is being used for autonomous weapon systems on the one hand, that's basically what the work is deals with. But of course also, for Amazon, rating algorithms or whatever, we have stock market, and we have different, let's say, niches or areas where those algorithms are being used, how they work. And then, of course, once you understand them, then of course you also know how to trick them, and that's super important, right? And for example, for the Google Maps hacks, once you understand like how this pattern recognition works, what I did, for example, was that I also tried to generate a stop and go behavior with the reagan. So I was not just carrying it like slowly. I was basically also sometimes going a bit faster, a bit slower, and so on. So, and I think this kind of stuff is something you understand once you deal with the program and once you do this kind of let's say programming process, which is, by the way, also a super creative process as well. I think it's also like sketching or drawing or something like this. So yeah. I mean, the for example, the Google Maps borders thing, like the thing with the borders, I wrote a program which basically scanned Google Maps from the different Google Maps versions or APIs. And this program was running for more than a month on a single computer. And for example, when you do this, then you come to issues like, interesting. Google, they will realize if you are requesting their web page, let's say 2 times a minute, so they will block you. So that means, okay, so how do I avoid this? And then you come across with things like the Tor network, which is also being discussed, let's say, when it comes to data privacy. So that you basically hide yourself in the internet and that you are able to access web pages and to review, let's say like this, your identity in the internet once you need it. So without this kind of network, I wouldn't be able to create such a, let's say, scanning algorithm. One piece to another comes together and so on. And I think this is, anyway, this is what you learn when you especially when you have a project like this, you come across a lot of different, let's say, programming methods or ideas.
Yeah.
So how much time do we have left? How does it work?
Yeah, maybe you want to ask something to Christina, or Christina is asking something to you, or is there another question from the audience? No, I think so, just at the moment.
I had an interesting like when you said like the fun, like 2 thoughts I had about the maps. You said like because you said like of course, right, I mean Europe is not the center of the world, and I think still it's actually interesting that we are still, for example, also Google is using it, that they are still using the Mercator projection, right, which is like a super central Europe point of view, and what is also interesting, as you said, like that we have different time zones around the globe. Or no, we have different times, let's say like this, right? Clockwise. But when you have a look at the time zones, I think that's also super interesting, like how they are being drawn. So with regards to the country borders, and this is like where you see, okay, that's definitely like a political time zone and not really like the biological time. We are basically into it, right? Which is like insane, like when you have a look at specific countries, like how those timelines are being drawn.
Yeah, North Korea, for instance, it's a different time, and also not just 1 hour, 1 hour, a few minutes, I don't remember. And also Venezuela. Yeah, although the Earth is very physical thing, politically speaking, the time is being totally adapted. So, and also Greenwich, the 0 point, the starting point is coming from British, and all those weird things.
And a part of that, I think, even the maps you researched via Tor, which is also used, I think, since 15, 20 years or something as a data protection tool. But even the maps you research might be different in 2-3 months when you do it again. So what I'm wondering, for example, what could also be interesting that you might check that again, or that you might, for example, could you think about repeating your performance, which you did in Berlin with a red wagon? Because that would be very interesting maybe to check how all these elements work later. Maybe you also know experiments from James Bridle who worked with the auto electronic cars which can't cross over the white lines or something. So this is super interesting. If this, maybe the systems learn, and if you do that 2 or 3 times, then Google knows that you are kidding it or something. So this could be a strong competition also.
I mean, there are different methods to do that. I mean, that is really like, this is, for example, also, I think, like the process of, I think it's also the process of a hacker on the one hand, but also, let's say, as an artist, like how you tell the story. I mean, it's for me a really, let's say, important approach. Like I would like to tell the story as easy as it is for, let's say, people who are not so familiar with these technologies. And maybe just to give you another idea, right? Because imagine you have 99 smartphones in a room, you can actually also fake the GPS coordinates of those smartphones just by placing, let's say, a fake GPS antenna in this room. So all of smartphones, they're getting, let's say, fake GPS data. So that means you can actually create virtual traffic around the globe within or just from one place. So that's basically another approach. But the thing was that I was thinking about this and I thought like, okay, no, I don't want to do this because it's actually too technical, it's too complicated to understand, and I would like to reach the people which are not so familiar with this. So that's the thing, what's super important as well, like for me as an, let's say, tech somehow artist. And but you're right. I mean, just also another example, like this Google Maps borders thing, like when you have a look at my webpage, I mean, I published this work like 3 years ago, and everything was interactable. So basically, you had like an interactive map, and you could zoom in and zoom out and scroll and click for each map. And after I published the Google Maps hacks, suddenly this API request, so-called, or this kind of method didn't work anymore. So that means that probably some of those Google developers, they had a look at my webpage and they found out, let's say, this kind of fishy way, I exited their maps and they closed it basically. So this work wasn't working after I published the other work. Luckily enough, I did some screenshots, but that's, for example, also interesting part of, when you're working with data. And let's say if you have some kind of interactive thing, let's say on your webpage, that it might be possible it will work on the one day, but on the next day will not work because they're changing their whatever, data privacy, access or whatever.
That is what because I also wanted to mention at the beginning when you said every printed map is not any more actual when it is printed. But this is the funny thing, and this is also the same problem, I think, with digital or data maps at the moment. No? Yeah, I would say thank you so much, you both. Because I think it's a really fantastic coincidence that we have such fantastic, interesting shows from two artists which are dealing with it at the same time in Chemnitz, in the museum. I think this is also not normal, and that you are both now on the screens here at the Pochen Festival. Thank you so much. I really recommend everybody to visit the shows because it's really, really tough. Christina's show is up the end of only October. Yours is longer, no? I think up to the midst of December or something, Simon? Yeah, no? It's a little bit longer. So please visit the shows. It's really fantastic. We just gave a short snap and ideas of the two artists. And I give it over to Lucia, maybe now.
Yes, thank you three. I just I put my camera. I switched it off because then it looked much nicer with the three of you. And thanks a lot for the discussion, for the for the showing of your art. I think it was very, very deep and very, very good for us because, as I mentioned in the beginning, the Pochen Symposium is a kind of a searching for the theme, and it's about looking in which way could the artwork be made, or in which kind of talks should we make in the festival next year. So I think that was very great, and I thank, of course, the three of you and everybody who was listening and who was watching and asking questions. Thanks for that. I put the link for your website, Simon, on the chat for anybody who was interested in that, what you mentioned at last. And yes, I'm very happy that it worked quite good, and I think we recorded it, so if anybody would like to watch it again, that should be possible afterwards. And yes, I just have to announce one thing. If you're at Chemnitz right now, in about 15 minutes there will be a cooking show at the open space. It's called Catch Up Your Database, and I think it will be quite nice. So just a very short advertisement. It's, of course, part of the Pochen Symposium. And if you like to go there, just, maybe see you there. And yes, thanks for being here with us. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your input, and have a nice evening.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, you all. Bye, Simon. Bye, Christina.
Yes, bye.
Bye, Lucia.